Welcome back to Nolan Business Solutions ERM series of podcasts. So this is our second podcast where we're going to be exploring the members' details that we hold within the system. Our first podcast, we talked about what ERM is and the benefits of the system. And today we're going to go in a little bit more detail about what we hold in terms of their members. I'm Colin Smith and I'm the Technical Director of Nolan Business Solutions.
And I'm Andrew Butler. I'm a consultant at Nolan Business Solutions.
So let's jump into the product and go and explore the member details. So we've jumped across into the ERM product and we have the ERM home dashboard on the front screen. We've talked about the dashboard in the previous podcast, so today we're going to go straight into our members section. So what am I looking at, Andrew? I can see a number of active students here.
Yep, so this is the active student view, and first off we can see we've got a list of other system views, which again all of these come out of the box for you. So for instance we can see active graduates or active admin. So all of these system views which everyone will have visibility of, and it just gives you kind of easy access to kind of the specific group of records based on the name of the view. So first off we'll just keep on active students. And as you can see here, we have a kind of series of columns. These are all kind of assigned when you create a system view or even a personal view. And we can, where the kind of, you can see underlined, you can actually click on that and that will take you to the specific record in question. But just a couple of things before we kind of go into an actual student record. We have the ability to search. So for instance, you can either search by full name or member ID. You can just put in a part of a name, for instance, and then you can just press return on the keyboard. What they'll then do is have a look at all of the names of students beginning with Simon. So you can see here we've got Simon Joel or Simon Formby. And then you can kind of go into that record in question, which we're going to do now by either single clicking on the name or you can kind of double click on the line. So we're just going to click on his name here, and this will then take us into the student record. Okay, so we are in a student record, and as you can see we've got lots of information that we can record against this particular member. But before we kind of go into the actual kind of detail of what it kind of holds, you can hold onto a student record, we have something here which basically you can see the different forms for the different kind of record. So for instance, information is basically, this is like the main form which will basically display most of the student information. But for instance, you can see one here called Porter's Lodge. So if you have a porter as a member on system, you can assign them the ERM Porter's Lodge view, and then when they go onto ERM, this is what they will be shown. So you can see here we've got personal addresses, next of kin addresses, what memberships are on, and IDs as well.
So this is a restricted view because I guess a porter doesn't need to see all the details about what courses they're on.
Exactly.
But a porter will need to know the address of the student, who the next of kin is, if they need to contact them, and perhaps what memberships or what events they might be attending.
Yeah.
I see also at the bottom, it's quite interesting, there's a lot of information about the administration, their card number and their reference, etc. So I know from experience that porters quite often get asked for people's IDs, and then they can check on there against the student to make sure that
exactly.
it is correct.
And obviously the kind of the whole beauty of this is you can see how quick it was to search for a student by either their ID or their name. and just go into a record, and they can very quickly kind of ascertain what the ID was for that particular member.
Okay. Also notice at the top left-hand corner there's a space for a picture.
Yep.
So we can actually hold pictures in there as well, can we?
We can, yep. Mm-hmm. So you can simply import or upload a picture just by clicking on the image and just browsing, which will then open up your kind of typical Windows Explorer window. There is also an ability to import photos as well. If you have Visual Studio, there is a package where you can basically import all of the students based on the ID and the name of the file, which is something that we've done in the past for colleges.
So there'll be a good visual check for the porter.
Yeah.
To ensure that they're talking to the right person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to that information one, there seems to be lots of information. So what do I know about Joel? Is there an easy way of seeing the different areas?
Yep, so we've got these kind of three little lines next to the person's name, and you can see it's then broken down into different sections for the record. So we can see we've got general, staff, addresses, connections, and all of that kind of information, which if I can just show you here. So for instance, if I just want to kind of drill straight down into the addresses, I can click on the addresses and it just takes me to that particular section rather than having to scroll down and then kind of stopping in the exactly right place. So yeah, okay. Straight away you got that kind of nice easy navigation.
Okay. So what general information, I see we've got Simon Joel's name and initials there. His email address as well, so that's interesting. His personal and his home phone numbers. Okay.
So yeah, so you've got a lot of information. This is obviously, as I said, the general section that we're in at the moment. So you can just simply click into a field and then kind of input the data. We do have some checkboxes on here, and where kind of, for instance, the date field, you'll kind of be shown a little date picker, or you can manually type that in as well.
Okay. So if these fields aren't relevant to me, or I don't want to hold this data against the member or student, can I remove that from the screen? Can I hide it?
Yep. So that can be done by modifying the form. And as I said, we have kind of a series of forms. So, but if we are just working on the information form, for instance, we can kind of hide, for instance, other phone if it's not required. But we can we'll be covering that in a later podcast for the administration side.
Great. So, what do we know under the student details?
Okay, so the student details. This is where you'll be able to see the year of study that they're currently on. You can see we've got graduate status, fee and funding status. So we have a series of different kind of fees. So you can see here it's UK, but we can also look at the other ones here. And we also can see if they're EU or overseas, etc.
Okay.
Similar for the funding status as well. So you can see here we've got different codes. So we've got SF, which is self-funded, and we can also see on the list here the other types. So for instance, we got one there called S-SHIP for a scholarship. But again, with these, you can actually create your own different funding status and fee statuses, but these ones kind of typically can be out of the box, or obviously if you've got a brand new installation, then we'll kind of work through the different kind of funding and fee statuses that your particular establishment has.
So it's totally tailorable to the way that I work in my college.
Exactly.
Great. So I see we've got also the terms in there, which is the terms that relate there to the Oxford colleges.
Correct. Yep. But again, that's all tailorable. That is held in a terms database, which you can kind of create the different terms and assign it to the student to see which term they're actually on now.
So if this was a member of staff, So there's also information that we can hold if it's a member of staff as opposed to a student.
Correct. So one of the first things is you can see on the contact status we have the student ticked, and we're assigning a student type of graduate. Again, we have different kind of student types. But if this was a staff member, you would have the administrative staff tick box checked rather than student, and then we can assign the staff type. So it could be if it's a tutor or member of the finance team, you can kind of assign that. Once you kind of tick the administrative staff box, you can then go down to the staff details and actually put in what their job title is, their department, when they started, have they got an end date. You can record all of that kind of information as well.
Right. Okay. I see that further down there we've got two addresses. We've got the home address and the term address.
Yep.
Can we hold more addresses somewhere on the system?
Yep, we can. So on the extensions here, we do have an addresses button. Within there we can store multiple addresses. There is no limit. So that typically will be for emergency contacts, next of kin, all of them.
That looked like a really useful button there, but I guess we're going to come back to those common items in another podcast.
Yep, we'll actually be doing that in our next podcast, which will be exploring the common entities linked to a member record.
Great. Okay. So what else we've got? Connections.
Yep. So on here, this is a view showing all of the connections which this particular student has. So this can be used for if a student has a personal tutor. You can assign a particular tutor to a record, which is known as a connection. Okay. Obviously, that tutor will have to exist in the ERM database.
Okay. And just through those at the bottom, so memberships. Just looking at that looks to me like sort of a student can be a member of different societies within the college.
Yeah.
And with its what their start date, their end date, and chargeable is.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, one of the common ones is JCR, which is Junior Common Room. A lot of the colleges have a JCR, so you can assign the assignment to a JCR. You can also then define what kind of membership type is he. So, is he kind of is he just a contributor, or is he kind of a team leader or something within that? You can then again say what the start and end dates are, and if it's chargeable as well. So there can be kind of charges assigned to that membership.
Okay, brilliant. You can hold logs against the events, against their student courses as well. So
yep.
You can log those. You can also see there a list of his student residencies. Just a little bit further up. And the start dates on those, and then under his preferences we've got all his reference codes, and it's interesting that on this form we see all the codes, although on the Porter's one we only saw a selected number of those codes.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of having multiple forms, so you can kind of tailor what information exactly you want the specific user to see, and that's based on their user record. But yeah, from the preference here, we on the main kind of information one, we've got all of his kind of ID numbers. Not all of them typically have to be used, but they're kind of there for you to kind of utilize. You can see here you do have some user-defined fields as well, which you can kind of rename if you wish, and then use for perhaps you have more information than the system kind of offers. You can kind of just pop that into these user-defined fields.
Okay. And then when the student leaves us, there's information about his leaving. There's information there about keys, if keys are something that's important whether he's collected various keys.
Yep.
Some more user-defined fields, dates and text. That's interesting. So that's where we can really start tailoring it to be exactly what your college needs.
Yeah.
And at the bottom, various notes, a notepad.
Correct. So one of the nice features of this notes is when you enter in a note in here, it will tag the user who has put that note in and the date. And what we also do have here is an attach button. So we can attach records, so for instance scanned PDFs of important information on that record. which then can be seen and downloaded by other users who have access to this particular form.
Brilliant. So it really does hold an awful lot of information about
Yes.
each individual student or member of staff. So today we've seen the details held against a member. We've been able to see the views, the different views, the way that we can take a look at subsections of our membership, and then how we can also look within a particular member at different areas and assign that view to different people that are using the system. That's great. Thanks, Andrew. So hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and our next podcast will go into a little bit more detail about the common functions that we also enable you to look at or maintain for a particular student. So we'll be going into that in our next podcast.